on to our last session this afternoon for AIBotics Go Digital Series 2021. And we are talking about AI and the future of learning. The panel will be exchanging insights on AI and its impact on the transformation of the educational sector. Now, facilitating our closing panel discussion is Mr. David Farley, Head of Member Services at Learnovate Center. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Elle, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Again, from Ireland, we're delighted to be here and supporting this great event. My name is David Farley. I'm Head of Membership Services at the Learnovate Center. I hope most of you had the opportunity to hear our Centre Director, Nessa McAniff, earlier today, talking about the future of education and how artificial intelligence will impact it. A huge thanks to the APARA, Constellar and Enterprise Ireland teams in Singapore for organising such a great event today. I'd firstly like to introduce our panel. You've heard from all of our 4 speakers already as part of this event. We have Professor Hadianto Saeed, we have Owen O'Neill, we have Niamh Kelly, and we have Dr. Martin Farrells. And all 4 of our panelists are going to share their insights and talk about the future of education and how artificial intelligence will impact that. We'll look at how students can benefit. We will discuss how students can start to co-author their own learning journeys. And then we'll have plenty of advice along the way for teachers. In terms of starting the panel discussion today, I'm going to ask each of our speakers very briefly to tell us what does the topic of artificial intelligence and the impact on the transformation of the education sector mean for you in your role and the work that you do in your different organizations. So, Niamh, I might start with you if that's okay.
Absolutely, no problem. I think for me anyway, what it means is that we have a lot more opportunities to be creative in a lot of the tools that we give to people, and we can explore a lot more to bring out from people things that maybe we didn't think that were possible before. So a lot more creativity and a lot more exploration.
Great, thanks, Niamh. Owen, how about you?
Yeah, so I suppose at SEATS we've seen essentially a move from attendance to engagement, and that's possibly the biggest thing we've seen. You know, rather than just going off attendance as a main driver for student success, we've seen the interaction with their LMS, accessing online resources and providing a more complete picture of the student journey, providing a real life picture of the student journey. I believe that move from just for SEATS, from tracking attendance to looking at engagement and well-being is the future as we see it.
Great, thanks, Owen. And Hadianto, what does it mean for you in your role and the work that you do?
Yeah, I think in terms of delivery, content delivery to the students, and then that manage learning management in the classroom, how to manage the students, how to manage the content, how to manage their marking, how to control the process of learning, the student progress. I think that AI will help much, will ease the teachers' duties in the classroom, and everything can be recorded can be recorded well, and we can do evaluation by using the AI, I think, in the future. I think that's David. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Hadianto. Lots of opportunity with artificial intelligence. Martin, how about you? How is it impacting your role and the work that Soapbox Lab does?
Yeah, so look, I guess somebody who's been around this space for over 25 years now, I think it's, you know, I worked on kind of personalized tutor systems only 20 years ago. I think it's been clear for a long time the potential that a lot of these technologies have in education. I think what we're only starting to understand now is how transformational they can be. So they are transforming, but they can be transformational in themselves. And that's exciting for us in the work that we do at Soapbox, but also I can see the excitement coming through from the other panelists. I think the one point I would make around that promise, though, is that with that promise comes a huge amount of responsibility in terms of maintaining the integrity of those systems to support educational outcomes, because ultimately this should be about educational outcomes and not just the technology for technology's sake. So I'm interested in the balance of promise with integrity.
Great, thanks, Martin. There's a number of questions that we're hoping to get through as part of the panel discussion this afternoon, and I'm going to start with the first question, which is: name one major change that artificial intelligence will bring to the education sector. What do you think are the big changes that artificial intelligence will bring to this sector? Owen, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I suppose at SEETS we've seen that teaching and learning is going to focus, provide a hyper-personalized overview in the future, as AI insights seem to help learning paths that suit individual learning styles and students' particular circumstances. Technology it can signpost options to choose the style of content delivery or the level of assistance. As examples, we've already seen this in action as students choose between synchronous and asynchronous events content, and over the last 18 months. How people learn is changing, and AI is playing a significant part in that.
Great, thanks, Owen. Hadianto, how about yourself? What major change do you predict?
I think as the delivery of the content today to the students, and then the combination and the hybrid strategy with by using that online, and also by simulation, and then student we can put the student in group or to work in a project by using that AI, where they can do group project but like real. Bring the real thing, real situation into the e-learning, into the AI by AI technology, while they can learning by resolve their product. That in term of the student learning, and the term of teachers manage the classroom. I think since today that so complex that students should learn, and then so many resources, and that by AI, I think that will contribute to each the teachers how to manage the material, how to manage the student activities, how to group the students, how to watch the students' activities in the classroom, and then to mark the student to see the progress, and from pace to pace of learning. I think that in the future that AI will give much easier for the student to control the class. For instance, the marking itself, that now we have to mark the student one by one. Maybe that by using that AI can help the student, how the student activities, what the students do, what the student progress, that from time to time, by that the teachers can see, that can evaluate what should the students acquire next. I think that acquire next. I think that will help much for the teachers and for the student itself. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Hadianto. And I think there's a wealth of opportunities in many of the areas that you mentioned there. I think digital marking and the use of artificial intelligence for marking assessments is definitely something that a lot of teachers and lecturers will very much welcome, based on the time that they sometimes spend on their relevant marking. Martin, from your perspective, I'm sure there's many changes that you're seeing in the industry from AI implementation perspective. What's the biggest one from your view?
Yeah, I guess for a long time we've known, since education has been in place, we've known that differentiated approaches kind of work best for students, right? And approaches that are designed around their individual learning needs. I think that we've tried for a long time to build kind of personalized and adaptive systems, and largely not really done a great job of it, frankly, from a technology point of view. And I think partly that's because we're going to go for kind of silver bullet solutions that can do everything, whereas we should really be focusing on very kind of specific areas. But I think that AI and AI's ability to be able to analyze very large data sets has the potential to transform how we do personalized and adaptive learning within these systems. So I think that could be transformative. I think it's going to be exciting to see how that plays out over the next few years, and how, as I said, that kind of focused application of AI to support, maybe by subject area or age group area, this personalized and adaptive approach to bringing differentiated learning opportunities to learners will be the kind of the major leap forward.
Great, thanks, Martin. I think that's a theme that we're hearing throughout the event today, is the differentiated opportunities for education and learning using artificial intelligence. I might just ask you what you believe is the best advice you would give a teacher who is currently in the classroom, looking at all of these different tools and technologies and seeing the opportunity of artificial intelligence, but perhaps not knowing exactly where to start. What advice would you give a teacher today?
First of all, it would be breathe. It can be really, really overwhelming. And I would just say first that, like, I'm not or didn't come from a tech kind of background, or I was never really the most technical of teachers, you know, up till like 5 years ago was when I started out by myself with online teaching and developed an online school. So I had to learn a lot of the things. And initially there is maybe a long learning process. Now, I think even in the last year that there's a lot more digital companies coming out, and there's a lot more noise. So it can be very difficult to understand what are the benefits of using each one. And then you have to go and explore them. On top of your job as a teacher, that can all be very overwhelming. So what happens for a lot of teachers, a lot of schools, is maybe they just stay away from everything altogether. But what I would say is that, yes, you have to breathe, and the digital companies, the software packages will benefit you. It will make your life easier if it's correcting and evaluating, if it's saving you time, that you can get time back to doing what you are passionate about, and that is educating people and bringing the best out of them. You really just need to focus on one, maybe what is the goal that you're trying to achieve with the technology, and try it out, play around with it. There's obviously other problems in there that not all schools will allow you to, even if you find something that you like, not all schools will take that on board. So definitely have an awareness of what you're allowed to mention to bosses, but explore. It might be slow, but there's definitely huge benefits to come from it.
I think you make a great point there in terms of the levels of adoption of these different tools and technologies across the different education environments that we are all part of. Some, you know, organizations, some institutes, some education facilities are very happy to embrace these new technologies, but in other cases there can be that nervousness and hesitancy. So I think your recommendation that people continue to breathe and embrace this is very good advice. Perhaps, Niamh, staying with yourself and thinking about students and the advice that you would give students, what advice would you give students in relation to the opportunity with artificial intelligence?
Actually, I think, like, students now have so much opportunity out there, and I actually would like to be at school again now at this time, because learning doesn't only have to be in the classroom. You know, and for a lot of students, when they have their mobile phone in their hand, if you know, they'll go home and they'll have their computers as well. So they have a lot more access to technologies, and in a way, a lot of them may actually be progressing their learning in the technologies and before the schools actually catch up. So I would say that the students have the opportunity now to be able to be diversifying and improving their own learning, even outside of the confines of school. Obviously, if the teachers in the school can bring that in and embrace it, it would be great to benefit everyone collectively. But students are smart now, and they're savvy, and they know about all these digital things, and they're able to use it. So I think the understanding or the idea that learning is continual, and it's not just in the confines of the classroom. You know, continue to learn and explore for yourself, because you might find something that really benefits you. Because the time that it has to take to get into the school might be a little bit long.
I think some great points there for teachers and students, and some great advice to both in terms of embracing these new technologies. And I love your point there in relation to lifelong learning at Learnovate. That's something that we are certainly looking at from a research perspective, the whole concept of continuous learning, as you call it out there. So obviously, assuming the teachers and the students embrace these new tools and technologies and artificial intelligence, there's most likely numerous benefits for students using artificial intelligence. I might just ask Hadianto to perhaps give your view on what you believe some of the benefits are for students using artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Right. By using the AI in the learning, they can manage their own learning in the futures, and they can evaluate themselves, and then they can work together with their friends, and then watch their own progress, and then also select what activities that they like to do through the some features that in AI online learning, and then they know their progress by themselves, and then what should they what they should to get acquire about the contents, about the module that have been designed by the teachers. Then they can follow by their own. They can do learning. They can explore. They can. I think it's so many benefit for the students that, and beside that, they are actually learning to use the technology itself. While when they are graduated from university, they are very already familiar to use that AI for at the working place. So I think that will be benefit the student in learning, and in the process of learning at university, at the school, and after they are attending the school. I think that's David. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Hadianto. I love your mention there on collaboration and the fact that students can collaborate more, and you mentioned exploring as well. Obviously, students love to explore, and artificial intelligence gives them greater opportunity in that regard. Martin, I might just pass to you and hear from your side in terms of what benefits you believe students are getting from the use of artificial intelligence, perhaps with the use of your technologies.
Yeah, I think in many ways, David, our job is to make the use of these kind of technologies seamless for students, right? So, yes, we use our technology, for example, in products that are doing things like pronunciation assessment or reading fluency. But from a kid's perspective, that experience should be kind of seamless, and what we're trying to do is to create new experiences, more engaging experiences, right? So the utility of the technology itself, the utility of it, the value of it in terms of its increasing in productivity, or it's better able to assess how a child is progressing, is really valuable from an education system point of view. But from the kids' point of view, what you're really trying to do is to build more engaging experiences. So how can you kind of create for example, a language learning product where the child is being assessed without even knowing that they're being assessed, right? So that the assessment is happening in the background in a formative way, They are learning, but actually they feel like they're just playing a game, which is fun because the technology just works for them. The other extension to that, I think, is that we're looking at areas now where, for example, we can make our tools available for kids who are building stuff in Roblox, for example. Right, so if you have a child in a kind of creating environment or in a creative environment where they're building their own games or building their own characters to interact with, how can they build things like voice technology into that? How can they author that into that platform and make it available for themselves? So that's really extending out the utility of the technology into something which is a much more creative space for the child, and they start to use. The one thing that I think is really critical in all of this, and there's some amazing work being done in lots of locations around the world, but particularly here in Dreamspace, in Microsoft's education space here in Dublin, is teaching kids how is AI working, right? So how do you explain to a 7-year-old how AI is being used, for example, to do facial recognition, right? And building curriculum that is embedding in their minds that this is actually, it is computers. You're not talking to a real person when you're talking to a smart assistant. How do you embed that into the curriculum? I think that's another key part of this that we have to start looking at and explaining to them how this AI in very broad terms works.
Great. Thanks, Martin. And I think you bring up some great points there in terms of engagement and, I suppose AI behind the scenes doing great things for these students unknowns to them and the opportunity for them in that regard. One of the topics that we were going to look at today was how will students be able to alter their own learning journeys. Students obviously want to be more rulers of their own education and alter their own learning experiences and learning journeys. Owen, I might ask you to comment in that regard.
Yeah, well, I think definitely from in higher education anyway, over the last 2 years with the move to online learning, and hopefully now with the move back to in-person teaching and a more blended learning approach to things, how we've already seen how the students being able to choose how they interact with their learning. So whether that be choosing their schedules, but actually just the form of their learning, whether they want to attend physically, whether they will learn better online, and just being able to take ownership of their own education. We're already seeing that, and that's just going to grow. And obviously, as information progresses with the effectiveness of each method, it's just becoming a more a personalized experience for each student. They might not, as I said, work well in a crowded lecture hall. They might learn better of their own accord at home. So just being able to facilitate those options and allowing, as I said, the students the ability to choose is a massive step.
The opportunity for individual and personalized learning it's endless, really, in terms of the use of artificial intelligence. And obviously Seat Software own working at the third level side of the house. Is there any particular advice that you would give lecturers at the third level environment?
So it's when you've implemented something like Seat, it's having, I suppose, confidence in the results you're getting. Trusting in the applied machine learning that if they're highlighting that there's students that need outreach, that these are in fact the students that that are cause for concern. We have an early alert system that is essentially like a safety net, and you need to trust that the behind the algorithms behind the scenes are working, and that the students highlighted on screen are the ones that need your concern, and that you're not missing out on any potentially at-risk students.
Great. Thanks, Owen. We're coming up towards the end of our panel discussion already, and before we close out, I'm going to ask for a couple of final remarks in relation to AI and the impact on the transformation of the education sector. Martin, I'll start with you. What are your final remarks and advice to our attendees today?
Well, I think just build on something that Owen said, actually, and he talked about learners taking ownership of their learning. I have two 6-year-olds in the house, of twins here, and during the first lockdown, they had to take ownership of their own learning because they were homeschooling. I think let's not underestimate the capacity of our learners at even those young ages to take ownership and responsibility for their learning. Give them the opportunities and they will do it. And technology can help to do that. It's not the magic or silver bullet, but it can certainly help along that process. So ownership and responsibility, I think, are really, really important principles.
Great. Thanks, Martin. Hadianto, any final remarks from your side?
All right. Okay. All right. I think that in the future, AI, we expect AI can be applied to help the teacher, to control class, to manage class. Since that today a lot of resources, a lot of content that we need to expose to the students. By AI will help the teachers much to control their learning, to control the process of learning, and then also as well as to control the grading system of the student, whether it is the grading for processing, learning process, and also the grading for the student achievements. I think that's it.
Lots of opportunity there. Thanks, Hadianto. Neve, any closing words of wisdom from you?
I would just say that for anybody in the education sector there, that it is about embracing it, trying it out, because what you will, I think one of the biggest benefits is you can take back time. So it's going to give time back to the teachers to do the things they truly are there to do and are passionate about.
Great. Thanks, Owen. Or thanks, Neve, I should say. Owen, any last minute insights from your side?
Yeah, I'd like to actually build on from a point that Neve made in her presentation, just about the fact that, AI, we're talking about the future and embracing change and things, but the fact that there is a whole host of technology that is available right now for, and I think a big thing that we've seen is the use of predictive analytics. Institutions have silos and silos of data that's is just waiting to be used. Using the past outcomes to predict future outcomes, I think, is a massive part of AI that is already accessible and ready to use right now. So I think, just capitalizing on existing systems is a big takeaway.
Great. Thanks, Owen. And I think what we've seen throughout the course of our panel discussion is just the opportunity that AI presents and the potential impact that it can have on the transformation of the education sector. I'd like to say a huge thanks to Hadianto, to Owen, to Neve, and to Martin for being part of this panel discussion today. And thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you all again very soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks, David, and thank you to all our panelists and speakers. That wraps up our session this afternoon at AIBotics Go Digital Series 2021, and we talked about AI and the future of